"Let my dad go and I'll make you walk." The court laughed, until they saw the judge get up alone. The wooden gavel struck once. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The room stood as Judge Raymond Callahan rolled into the courtroom, his black robe flowing over the sides of his wheelchair. At 62, his presence remained as formidable as ever. Despite his paralyzed legs, the authority in his steel-blue eyes was undeniable. He had spent the last decade delivering sentences with a reputation for being harsh, especially towards defendants like the man seated before him today. Darius Moore, a black man in his late 30s, sat quietly at the defendant's table, handcuffed in front of him, wearing a faded peach prison jumpsuit. He had been charged with obstruction, fraud, and resisting arrest. To the court, he was just another number, another file in the pile. But to Judge Callahan, this case seemed clear. Repeat offender. No sign of remorse. As the trial neared its final moment, sentencing, the room was thick with tension. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, the people recommend no less than 15 years. The defendant has wasted this court's time with ridiculous claims of false imprisonment. Despite overwhelming evidence, he has lied about his identity and his actions. It's time he faced the consequences." Darius lowered his head, his public defender silent beside him. She had stopped fighting hours ago. Callahan adjusted himself in his chair, preparing to speak. But then, something unexpected happened. The heavy courtroom doors creaked open. A soft patter of small footsteps echoed through the room. The crowd gasped as a little black girl no older than 7 entered the room. She wore a light blue dress, her hair neatly tied in 2 braids. She was alone. No adults accompanied her, and no one stopped her. The child walked down the aisle past rows of spectators, past the murmuring lawyers and the stunned bailiffs, until she stood directly in front of Judge Callahan's bench. "Who is this child?" the judge asked, his confusion evident. Before anyone could answer, the little girl lifted her gaze and spoke with a calm, steady voice. "Let my daddy go and I'll make you walk." The courtroom erupted. Laughter came from one of the gallery rows. A snort of disbelief echoed from the prosecution's table. Even one of the guards couldn't help but smirk. Callahan blinked, visibly taken aback. "What did you just say?" "I said," the girl repeated, her voice unwavering, "if you let him go, I'll make you walk." The judge leaned back, his expression one of disbelief. "This isn't a place for jokes or fairy tales." He turned to the bailiff. "Remove the girl." Suddenly, Darius rose halfway from his seat, his voice desperate. "Please, let her speak." "Sit down," Callahan snapped. "This is highly irregular." "I came because you're not listening," the girl continued. "Nobody listens to my dad. They don't know who he really is." Callahan's eyes narrowed. "And who is he exactly?" "He used to help people. Before you locked him up, he used to make them better." This time more laughter filled the room. Even the stenographer had to look down, hiding her smile. Callahan shot a glare at his clerk. "Why is she even allowed in here? Who let her in?" "She's his daughter," the bailiff answered, looking uneasy. "She walked in alone and refused to leave. We didn't know what to do. You should have stopped her at the door." "We tried." Callahan turned back to the girl. "What's your name, child?" "Hope." A heavy silence settled over the room. "Hope," Callahan said, swallowing, "I don't know what you think is going to happen here, but this is a courtroom, not the place for whatever this is." "But this is exactly where it needs to happen," she replied. "You've been sitting in that chair for 10 years, haven't you?" Callahan stiffened. "That's none of your concern. You couldn't feel your legs after the accident. They said your spine was broken, that you'd never walk again." His lips tightened, but he didn't respond. "You want to walk," she said softly. Callahan's fingers gripped the wheels of his chair. The room seemed to hold its breath. "I'm not here to scare you," Hope continued, stepping closer. "But I'm asking you something no one else will. Please, don't hurt my dad again. He didn't lie. You just didn't believe him." Callahan's gaze shifted briefly toward Darius, his jaw clenched in frustration. Hope slowly lifted her hand as though reaching for something invisible. "If you give him back to me," she whispered, "I'll give something back to you." For the first time in a decade, Callahan opened his mouth, but words failed him. He paused, his thoughts momentarily clouded. A strange warmth, not pain, not tingling, but the gentle heat of sunlight, seemed to seep into his knees. It was subtle, but undeniable. He glanced down at his legs. Nothing had changed. They were still motionless. Yet something felt different. His gaze returned to Hope. The courtroom was silent. Hope lifted her hand just a little higher. "Please," she repeated softly. "Let him go." Darius's face was shaking now, tears threatening to spill. "She's not lying." The judge stared at the child before him. For the first time in his career, he couldn't find his voice. The room held its breath. Judge Callahan's eyes remained fixed on the small hand reaching toward him, unwavering, calm. The warmth he had felt earlier hadn't faded. In fact, it was growing, spreading slowly, working its way through nerves long thought dead. A strange flutter stirred in his stomach. Hope didn't blink. She didn't withdraw her hand. The room remained still. The bailiffs looked to the judge, uncertain if they should step in. Callahan slowly released his grip on the wheelchair's rims. "What are you doing to me?" "I'm not doing anything," Hope said gently. "You're the one who's always wanted to walk. I'm just unlocking what's still inside you." "You're a child," she nodded. "And you're afraid," she added. Callahan's jaw tightened. "You think this is fear? You think I'm scared of some fairy tale?" "No," Hope replied. "You're scared of being wrong." The words struck harder than he anticipated. His hands tightened around the armrests because she was right. For the past 10 years he had accepted paralysis, not just in his legs but in his spirit, in his mind, in his judgments. The day he lost his ability to walk had also been the day he decided never to believe in anything beyond his own understanding. He had built a life inside that wheelchair, blocking the rest of the world out. His eyes shifted to Darius, who was watching his daughter, wide-eyed, not with surprise, but with awe. "You knew she could do this," Callahan said softly. Darius swallowed hard. "She's done things before, small things, little miracles. I thought maybe I was imagining it, but I never asked her to do this. I never let her try." "Why now?" "Because I told her I might not make it out of here," Darius replied, voice cracking. "That I might be gone for a long time, and she said, 'Not if I help.'" Callahan turned his gaze back to Hope. The warmth had reached his thighs now. He blinked down at his legs, and for the first time in 10 years, he moved his right foot. The courtroom erupted. Gasps filled the room. Chairs scraped across the floor. Hope remained calm, her expression unchanged. Darius stood up, his cuffed hands trembling. "Judge, what's happening?" Callahan's face went pale as he looked down in disbelief. Then, his left foot shifted too. Slowly, painfully, he pressed his palms on the chair's arms and, with a determined effort, he rose to his feet. He stood, both feet on the ground. The courtroom fell completely silent. The prosecutor's mouth hung open in shock. The bailiff took a cautious step back, eyes wide, as if he'd seen a ghost. Judge Raymond Callahan, the man who had spent years delivering harsh sentences, now stood tall, his legs trembling beneath him, but standing. He opened his mouth to speak, but his throat tightened. Hope took a step back and smiled. "Now, please give me back my dad." The judge collapsed back into his seat, not from weakness but from disbelief. His body shook. This is impossible." But no one was laughing now. The clerk leaned in, whispering, "Sir, what do we do now?" Callahan stared at the file in front of him. Darius's record, years of arrests most dismissed, one charge with no conviction. And this current charge based on an anonymous tip. No concrete evidence, no victim willing to testify. It had never sat well with him, but he had buried it under assumptions. "Bring me the arresting officer's report," he ordered, his voice cracking. Minutes passed, and the courtroom sprang into action. Papers shuffled, documents appeared, and so did something else. Inconsistencies, gaps in the timeline, fabricated witness testimony. It all unraveled swiftly. Within the hour, Judge Callahan issued a complete reversal of judgment. "Mr. Darius Moore," he said, his voice trembling as he stood once more, "you are hereby cleared of all charges. Your record will be expunged, and this court owes you an apology." Hope rushed into her father's arms. Darius, still shackled, dropped to his knees, holding her tight. "She did what she promised," he whispered, burying his face in her shoulder. Callahan approached slowly. "I want to know how she did that." Darius stood and met his gaze. "She didn't heal you. She reminded you that you could heal yourself." Callahan shook his head. "That doesn't make sense." Darius smiled gently. "It's not supposed to." Callahan paused, then, for the first time in years, a smile spread across his face. "You're free, Mr. Moore. Bailiff, remove his chains." The shackles hit the floor with a loud clatter. Darius lifted Hope into his arms, both their faces streaked with tears. They turned to leave, but just before they reached the door, the judge called out, "Hope?" She turned back. "Thank you." She nodded. "Now maybe you can believe." Again, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.